Hello and welcome, everyone. This is our third and last part of our series on circular supply chains, the events that we announced earlier with Michael Boyle here with me. And today we are discussing how technology can help our circular supply chains as a sustainability booster. And what do we mean by a booster, or what do we really expect? We do expect, an increase of transparency, accountability, efficiency, and real circular innovation along the supply chains. And that's what we're going to discuss. We have three amazing panelists here with us today from three very different industries. But what connects them all is that they turn waste to resources and pollution to profit in very different ways, but they are all using advanced technologies. So at the moment, we have with us Stephanie Benedetto, who's the queen of Raw, and she's basically running a startup, which is not exactly a startup if you ask me anymore, where they are managing a platform and the marketplace and selling and buying leftover textile materials. She's from New York City. We have Dominik Campanella with us, who's a co-founder and one of the brains behind Concular and Restado from Berlin. He's in the construction industry. And last but not least, we have Susan Walsh with us, the classification guru from Guildford, and she will just add all the data and analytics segment to our story today. So welcome our panelists, and we can start, I think, the discussion directly with Stephanie about how she has set up this amazing circular startup, and basically, Stephanie, for me, the best question would be is to get some insight into how you're using this amazing blockchain, AI, and machine learning technology to really make this happen in the background. This seems to be very easy from a marketplace perspective, to manage, these aspects. But I know for a fact from one of my friends who's in the business as well, that it's not actually that easy. So tell us a little bit about, how you started and what is really the edge where you see the value of blockchain and the technology supporting you.
Thank you so much for having me and for the kind words and introduction. Yeah, you're right. When you look at a marketplace, of course, one might think that, all you need to do is add some supply, match buyers and sellers, and sell the goods, right? And, yes, that is how a marketplace works. But what's been very interesting since we launched Queen of Raw, and based on my learnings, I come from a family who have been in fashion and textiles for over 100 years, since the 1890s. So I very much grew up around this industry. And as much as I loved it, I did dislike all the waste it produced and believed there had to be a better way. But as we've been building and growing Queen of Raw globally, we realized that there are challenges with this industry because in many ways, fashion and textiles, they're still doing things the way my great-grandfather did in 1896, right? Or maybe Excel spreadsheets. And when you're trying to manage a very complex supply chain across it, around the world with all hundreds of steps and all of the waste and inefficiencies that it produces, it becomes unsustainable. And I think we've learned that through COVID, right? And so as we've been growing the marketplace, we realized we needed to leverage tools like machine learning, AI, and blockchain in order to be able to do more for our community and to make that match happen quickly and easily. So when it comes to blockchain, that's been a very popular word all over the place, right? We're using it for a very specific purpose. We want to provide integrity to the data that we're capturing about this waste and these products. Yeah. I want to know what it's made of. Where did it come from? Why is it waste, right? Does it have any testing or sustainability certifications for that fabric? And where does it go to? And that's what we use blockchain for, to create a record and a history and know who said what when. And now that we're able to capture that information, right, about all this waste, we can also cull all of that exciting data that a business never had before about its waste And ultimately, our goal is, yes, of course, to help them sell their waste in our marketplace. But over time, how can we help them have intelligent predictions to minimize all that waste going forward? So maybe we never need Queen of Raw Marketplace because everyone is on our software and tools and their supply chains are efficient, right? And I think that's what technology can do for us. It is building for the supply chain of the future, one that is more on demand, local, sustainable, and digital, of course.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you mentioned, more of the enterprise side of the business, and I did check actually that you're growing the business in that direction. I'm so happy to hear and see that, because one of the key things that we always hear as a feedback, from big companies, that, oh yeah, startups have an easy start, with applying all the nice and fancy technology, but applying it on a bigger scale is not that easy. And when I see, the information coming out on your marketplace solution for enterprises and what it can do, it really is, not just a confirmation, but also hope that we can get this, kind of argument or pushback out of the equation, and we can take a huge step forward. And could you just tell me, how this stands at the moment, and how the enterprises that you collaborate with, they are adopting this new technology with you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's been, you're right, one of the challenges and perhaps misconceptions about the whole S word, sustainability, right? Like the B word, yes. Blockchain. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. And big corporations automatically assume that if they're going to go sustainable and change business practices, it's going to cost them more money, and that it's going to be hard to grow and scale, right? And exactly. I think that those are very much that myths about sustainability that we as a movement need to shift and change. Because the way our business model works, right? Businesses can actually save and make money while doing good, right? And so they can sell this waste, improving their bottom line, and also get all this valuable data and analytics to help their top line business get more efficient and to tell a sustainable story to their end customers. And so, we're very excited to be able to show these big brands and retailers, here's the value proposition from an economic profitability perspective, while also being good for people and planet, right? And how do you say no to that? And absolutely. And you're right. At the same time, when these businesses, when we go and work with them, when I first started looking at this issue in 2014, it was thought of as a nice to have, right? It would be nice if we could do this, but I think fast forward to today, and the latest McKinsey report shows that for C-suites, it is now a top 3 priority for every big company, and it is a have to survive today and to thrive tomorrow. But in order to do that, we need to be able to scale. And so we've leveraged some incredible partnerships, like with partners like SAP, where now for a big brand or retailer, we can actually integrate directly into their inventory system or systems, pull all of that data from all those different touch points into one place, and then our engine and our machine can start to work. It helps them classify what's waste. It helps them automatically sell it in Queen of Raw, and then it pushes all that information back to their system. So everything is scalable and in sync. So where our onboarding process as a marketplace used to take months manually, now we can do it in minutes for hundreds of thousands of SKUs, right? And I think that's where the future of sustainability and what digitization can do for it is going.
Could not agree more, really. And I just see a question coming from the audience, and I know that you're leaving. So as you talked about SAP and the other solutions that you work together with, are you using digital twins as part of the solution, or is there anything else that you could share about how you use the different solutions that help you on the way?
Yeah. So, I think critical to building any kind of solution in sustainability, and especially circular economy, is about connecting the dots and collaborating and partnering with incredible channel partners. Obviously, some of them are going to be the inventory management systems like an SAP, a Microsoft, or Oracle. But some of the ones we're looking at now are things like ESG reporting in banks, right? I mean, these businesses now are going to be derated and delisted if they do not report on the business and sustainability measures metrics that they're capturing. But how do they get that data, right? And what do those reports look like? And I think that's where tools like ours digitally can say, here's the report, here's what you can show for your ESGs that you've done in saving water, toxins, energy, and dollars. And then being able to, in the future, obviously, as the laws are changing on the books, being able to help them offset that coming legal liability around changes in recycling laws, right? EPR policies and whatnot. And it's happening globally.
Absolutely. And as a last question, we are really running on time. I just wanted to ask you about the future. I know everything is really fast, and you're also growing partially because of the solution itself is amazing, but also partially driven by the pandemic, right? So I think the pandemic really provided, a good platform to boost the change in mindset. What do you think about the near future? Is it really a long-lasting mindset change, or is it something that will oscillate a little bit before we get there?
I think that right now the pandemic has given people a powerful opportunity to look at what's going on in the world for people and planet, but also for a business's profit, as we've been talking. And it kind of fast forward quicker than ever before, and force the hand for a lot of big corporations. They have to look now at their business practices, because the world will remember, then the people and their consumers will remember the acts that they took during this time towards people and planet. And so I think for us as a business, it's provided an opportunity. It has shown people what the future is going to look like. And we have an opportunity now, especially for any startups out there, in order to build and invent that future. And to look at what does post-pandemic crisis, right? What does the future supply chain look like? And what does the world look like? And how, for the brands and the big corporations that innovate today and think about this, I do believe are going to be the ones that survive and thrive tomorrow. But the ones that don't may end up being dinosaurs. And so for any startups looking, I think it's a powerful time to be able to align with those good actors and the good enterprise corporations, and really position coming out of this for a scalable, stronger future. And technology does that. It's thrilling to see the opportunities there. And we're just at the beginning of what's possible. So never doubt that you can go out there and change the world.
Again, I could not agree with you, Stephanie, more. It's amazing. And again, as our time is running out, thank you so much for being here. Even if we know that you have a short time, this is really a absolutely full time for the year for you. So thank you very much for being here. And if you can stay around, we are happy to have you for the Q&A at the end. But right now, we just send you back to the studio, and we have Dominik with us as our second guest. Thank you so much. And hello, Dominik.
Yeah, thank you a lot for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here and sharing your point of view, about a very different industry, construction, but equally important, because I think if you take a look at, all of the reports that we discuss and take a look at from a sustainability and circularity perspective, construction is one of those areas which heavily contributes to most of the waste that we are producing as part of how we live. So for me, seeing you and your companies being active in this area gives hope, as I said to Stephanie on the other end, that we can quickly change, how we work with all of these materials. And if you could just shortly introduce what you do with both of the companies, and then we will launch into the questions. I have no doubt that would be great. Just a few words about really what you do with both the marketplace that you're managing, as well as pulling together a construction ecosystem as part of the solution. Just let us know really how it works.
Yeah, for sure. So, first of all, you're right. So the construction sector is one of the 5 industries, like the fashion industry, which Stephanie talked about, which is very important to change for a circular economy. And so what we are doing, or actually the concept of restado, where everything began, was to create a marketplace for reclaimed construction materials. So materials coming from demolition and or surplus on construction site can be sold on our marketplace restado. And with that concept, we grow over the last year to be the largest marketplace for this kind of materials in Europe. But what we saw is that we are mainly sold from B2C. but where the impact really lies is in the B2B market. And that's why we created Concular. And maybe also some numbers, like the construction sector is responsible for 60% of waste and 40% of CO2 emissions. So we really have to do something there. And so with Concular, we're going very early into deconstruction projects, so like 1.5 years before, and also in construction projects, so new construction projects. And what we're doing on the deconstruction side is that we are creating a digital inventory of the materials in this building, which is getting to be deconstructed, and then assess like how easy these materials can be deconstructed, what is the probability that they can be sold, and what could be the potential value of these materials. And we have the data because we collected that in the last 8 years on the marketplace on Restado. And now we have the supply side, and then we get the demand side from architects, which give us their material demand lists in new projects, and we match that. And so we know, hopefully like 1.5 years before a project even starts, that there's a match, that there are these materials available around the same time, and then we take care about the supply chain. So getting the material from the deconstruction side to the new side with transportation, storage, refurbishment, and so on. And hopefully with that, we can reduce the amount of waste and CO2 emissions in the construction sector.
I'm absolutely certain that you can do this. And I really am happy to see that. Again, I know this is a coincidence at the moment, but I also have family members in the construction industry. And when I showed them, what your companies are doing, they were like, oh my God, this is really second level. And they of course don't live in Germany. So I hope, that the solution can be quickly adopted in other parts of the planet as well. This is how well I think about the solution. And from an overall perspective, knowing how the construction industry worked before, have you seen a change in mindset and approach since you started the companies, in terms of, people are approaching you more proactively, they welcome the solution? I know that some parts of the industry used to be quite dodgy sometimes, it's not so the transparency was definitely missing. And with your solutions, the transparency is really accurate and 100%, I would say. What do you think?
So in general, the first construction sector is the least digitalized sector in the world, with the agriculture sector. So there's like that also means the mindset is very conservative, and so we are approaching very often actors which are not really open for that. However, we definitely saw a change in specific actors, which are mainly architect offices, which are quite open for this idea, which are also approaching us and then are working together with us to convince their clients on doing that sustainable development or deconstruction. And I think one key argument which is working for these clients is that we can save costs, deconstruction costs with that, because these materials, they have to be disposed, and that costs money. But with our solution, you can get money for these materials. So the end of life value increases and the demolition costs decreases. And when you come with that argument, then obviously that convinces a lot of the stakeholders.
Absolutely. And there is another aspect that came to mind, which is close to my heart, is really, urban living as such, right? And then how do we change urban living and construction that comes with that? And I would be really pleased to see, your solution working together with smart city solutions and circular city solutions, where, potentially we can repurpose office buildings that we are not using because of everybody's working from home, right? So this is fairly new, but I think we have such a gap between, how many residential homes are available in cities for people who live there. And at the same time, we have empty, or not empty, but unused office buildings at the moment. So there I see a huge, possibility with the lower cost second-hand or third-hand materials that you're using. And these opportunities, what do you think about these? And do you see a collaboration opportunity from your end? I certainly see, but hope.
Yes, that's exactly, and that's also what we see. I think there's so much opportunities and exciting projects also now ongoing. So, for example, we're in a project where we take the materials from this deconstruction site and build a new building with these materials on the same site. And that, I think, is and that also like this building is a bit more, so it's getting repurposed, but in the end, so no new or almost no new resources are used, right? Because I mean, you use, and there's also no transportation and so on, because everything is there already. But that changes also a bit like the process how architecture offices are working, right? So normally you plan a building and then you select the materials, and in this case, you first see what materials are available and then you plan the building. And so this is this is exciting. And so I see there are also a lot of links with smart, like the smart city approach, urban mining, and so on. And that's also why we are providing like also the data. So because as we digitalize all the buildings or the built environment with material passports, we are also able to provide, for example, cities and municipalities with these data, which they can use for like policy making or to see like what is actually built into our environment. So there's a lot of opportunities here. So I think we are one part of this whole smart city approach.
Absolutely. And on your note, basically, and then thank you for this last note on, the data and how others can use the data and the standards and the passports that you're producing. Well, basically with this, we can just prove that this is not such a, untransparent industry, or lack of transparency is not a problem anymore. And that can be used, for further decision making and also for further policy making and improvement in the industry, I would say, because that element, as you mentioned, is still lagging behind, and the whole industry needs to be supported by updated legislation and requirements.
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Dominik. I think for the individual session, that was all from your end, and we will send you back to our VIP lounge, as Michael usually says that, and we'll welcome you back at the end at the Q&A. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I would like to just call on Susan, who's our last guest today. Hi, Susan. Oh, wait, I think your microphone is still on mute, probably.
Typical of me. Yeah, you can tell it's Friday.
Don't worry. It's Friday, exactly. Yeah. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us as the last part of this panel, and providing insights more on the data and the use of data and how we can really use data from a circular and sustainable perspective, right? So I know that you work with a lot of bigger clients as well, and as we discussed earlier, right, standards, certifications, as well as data quality and availability in bigger companies can be not just a challenge, but also a hurdle that many cannot actually make. Yeah. So what do you think from your perspective and from your experience? Is it going the right way? Because we talk a lot, right? So lip service is pretty plenty at the moment, but what do you think from your point of view? What do you see?
I think that it's really hard to get people engaged who are inputting the information if they don't have a connection to the data. So whether it's a plank of wood or a piece of material, and they're putting in the weight, the color, the dimension, it's really important that they understand how that piece of information that they input into the system, it will travel further down the road, and how that will help the system and the process and their colleagues work more efficiently. If they forget to put the color or the size, and their colleague is then spent 2 hours trying to find out this information, knowing that they could have helped out really quickly, then I think it gets everybody to think about having more accurate data. And Stephanie talked about data integrity, and that is so important. And it's not just about the information on the product, actually. So thinking bigger than that, I'm thinking about how do we catalog all the building products or all the materials. So we're working over multiple countries, multiple languages. How do we, make sure that everything that is read is tagged as red. Everything that is pine wood is pine wood. And so that will give us greater visibility of what's available in terms of raw materials for use, how we can use them, where they've been, where they're going to, things like that. So but it all comes down to people. People are at the start of the process, and it's really important that we get them engaged. That's a challenge that I am battling every day, and I'm trying to make data a bit more exciting. This is my data den. But I see a load of opportunities where we could bring categorization of data to make it more useful and have a global picture of what materials are available for everybody to use. So it could be really powerful.
Absolutely, and you know what, this actually brings me to a bit of maybe a bit of cheeky question, but this is always part of the equation, right? You also see a lot of data waste, right, and the effort being wasted. So I just wanted to touch on this angle as well, that as you mentioned before, if someone as a human being and as a factor in the process, they don't pay attention, it can cost a lot of waste in every part of the process and every angle, right? So setting it up correctly, and then that's what you do as a professional, right? Setting it correctly and ensuring that that is being up to speed and up to date all the time. I think we had this discussion earlier that it's really critical that you don't just let it grow like a wild garden. Let's this way.
And that's it. Maintenance is the biggest piece that is forgotten. So, people will pay me to come in and fix their data, and I tell them that that's not enough. They have to maintain it. They have to check it regularly. They have to make sure that nobody's accidentally cut and paste something into the wrong column, because it happens. What if somebody accidentally deletes a whole product and nobody knows it's missing? If you are checking your data and working with it on a regular basis, you start to notice very quickly when things are not quite right. So, you're saving time, you're becoming more efficient, and you are improving the whole supply chain process as well.
Quite rightly, and the other thing that came to mind really based on what you just said is that digitalization can help a lot, and applying these advanced technologies to help those working with data, because whether we like it or not, right, entering a data or updating data fields are not exactly the most exciting tasks on the planet for anyone, although a lot of people love it. I would say this is a huge opportunity to just get a second pair of eyes and a helping hand in keeping the data up to date. Where do you think that is going at the moment from strictly data management perspective? Because I hear again a lot of projects that gone wrong, a lot of effort going to waste. What is your take on that, and why is it not improving as such from your perspective? Really, I mean, you see the most of it, right, from day to day.
Yeah, it's not glamorous, it's not sexy, it's not exciting, it's not even technology. Data cleansing at the basic level has to be done manually, and within organizations, they don't see a value in that. So I always say data is an investment, not a cost. And that's never been more true than now. But changing people's perceptions on that can be really tough. It all starts with people, and having accurate data at the start of any process is the most important thing. So, the blockchain technology, any software that's used, that the information that goes in will be used, and the output will be, good in and good out, rubbish in, rubbish out. So it's really important. But I think if we start to value data more, and maybe try and think of it more like an asset, then I think that there will be a change. And actually, I would say in the last 8 months or so, there has been a real shift towards understanding the power and value of data, and a lot of organizations are suddenly realizing that their data is not as good as it should be, and it's let them down. So I think there's a change on the way, but it's small steps. And I think we have to talk about data in a less intimidating way. So, there are some amazingly talented data scientists and analysts out there, but they're not the people that are going to input that information into the database or wherever, or the Excel spreadsheet. We need to talk to the people who are inputting it at that level in their own language, and make it a bit more fun and exciting. And, yes, we can, be serious as well, but I think we need to make it more relatable, and that will make everyone's lives easier.
So true, Susan, so true. And I think we need to end the questions on this high note. I so agree with you. And, as the WEF already, published, data management and all the scientific elements of managing data will be critical skills in the next few years. So I think we better man up, right, and start educating and teaching people in a fun and nice way that they actually enjoy working with data instead of intimidating them, as you said.
Yeah, and just finally, it does seem to be something that is tagged on to someone else's job, whereas actually it should be a skill and a task within its own right. So yeah, that's the change I'm hoping for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Susan. And I think this is really the time to get all the panelists back. At least Dominik is here with us, and we can tackle some of the questions that we can see from our participants. We have a lot of questions. So the first one really, circular economy supply chain is difficult. The active supply chain is currently incentivized against circularity. Great steps to help to change that. What do you think? Any of you can start, really, but I would say we need to touch on this a little bit more, from the side of not just the difficulties, but the opportunities, right? So we have so many opportunities, and I would urge everybody to look at it from the opportunity side, right?
I would say the data doesn't lie. All the great work that's happening, show you can see the cost savings and the value in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Still, I think I totally agree, Brian. I only can speak for the construction sector, right? I mean, there's subsidies for the production of new materials. It's cheaper, very often to just buy new than to reuse, and that is definitely going against actually the idea, right? And also labor. So in the past, materials were quite expensive and labor was quite cheap, and that was reverted now. So materials is now really cheap because of subsidies and industrialization and so on, and labor is quite expensive. And like when you want to reuse materials, you have to build them out selectively, and you have a lot of labor involved, and that makes the material then more expensive. And then also, for example, so you pay a VAT, VAT on the new materials, and when you reuse it, you have to pay it again. So you pay a tax twice for the same material. And I think a solution could be, for example, very simple, but like no politician will do it, just carbon tax the materials. And it will change drastically from today to tomorrow. But that is something politicians will not agree.
Absolutely, and you see, I have heard this comment from so many people, from so many different industries, from the oil industry to even the food industry, that this needs to come up in the government processes and the new legislations, because this is a uniform requirement from all of the circular economy professionals. So really good to hear from everybody. Let's take a look at another question from Gordon. So that's back to you, Susan, primarily, but we can discuss definitely. So is data a support process element or development process element on the value chain? What is your opinion?
I would say it starts way before that. The blockchain technology that's used, the products, that all has to be set up before this whole supply chain can even get moving, and you need the data before that, and not just the data, but the correct data. So I would say we have to start thinking about about that at the start of the process rather than further down the line.
In the middle, yeah. And also Gordon corrected himself, I believe, saying data cleansing as such. But yeah, you're completely right.
Yeah, no, it still has, honestly, I've seen this happen so many times. If you do it at the start of a project, it could take half the time and half the cost than if you have implemented a project and you're way deep into some new technology that's been implemented and training and all the staff training and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's get it right at the start and it will save you a world of pain further down the line.
Absolutely, I have seen the same. It's just terrible to see. Let's see how we can improve that. I believe it's very different in in construction, but still, I believe early planning.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just wondering because I know in the UK traditionally construction is a very probably more a pen and pencil and paper kind of industry, and I wondered if it was the same in Germany or if that's shifting.
So it's shifting with the so-called BIM model, so Building Information Model, so like now it's getting like the whole planning process is getting digitalized and it's getting more and more also used by actually almost all architecture offices. So we have now digital models of the building. The problem here, as you actually mentioned, is the maintaining, right? I mean, building is changing over 40, 50, 60 years. And like, that's not often reflected in the digital model then.
Yeah.
And then like, of course, the element of material passports is also part of, digitalizing, getting the data behind. And so they interact like BIM and material passports.
But yeah, it only takes someone to accidentally put the wrong year number in for it to completely change the information. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think we arrived to a conclusion from this question on one element, that the human aspect of the process will remain as it is now, if not increasing, right, despite all the digitalization, and we need to figure out a good way to use digital solutions to help us and build us up. We also have another question from Julia again. So how prevalent is data simulation tied to supply chain forecasting? Susan, probably you first.
Sure. I mean, that I always say I clean the data to the point that it's ready for analysis, and then the analysis is done by someone else. I would hope that it's being used at least to forecast demand and predict what the usage might be, but the reality is there's still a lot of really large global organizations out there who are using very primitive systems and processes. And it could just be one person with a spreadsheet here doing something, but the rest of the business doesn't know about it.
Absolutely, and I can just confirm that from a supply chain practitioner perspective, as one of them myself, sometimes they do use it. Sometimes it's just simply lost. The data is there. They just either they are unable to use it because they don't recognize that the data is there or that's actually useful. Or if they are using it, it's still used in the wrong way. And it's really rare to see companies, although increasing number of companies are using the data right. And from a construction perspective, I just wanted to ask you, Dominik, because I always have been interested. I know that you also have forecasting in construction, and there it's a very different process, also sometimes tied to a government budget, right? And all of these things. So could you give us a few words on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think forecasting is not really done in construction. So that's also why there's so much waste. I mean, now I'm talking about forecasting of, for example, material needs. Like what is normally done. So the forecasting on construction sites in Germany are like, okay, we buy 15% more than we think we need. And then, so in the end, like on average, 10 to 15% of waste of all the materials on the construction site are wasted, because they always just buy too much than too less. Because, as said, materials are cheap, labor is expensive. So if the labor doesn't have the materials to work, that is a problem. So they just buy much more, but they don't forecast because it's so cheap that there's no need to forecast. However, when we now digitalize, then there's, of course, much more possibilities of not only the planning process to forecast, but, for example, a city, when they know what is built in their city, what are materials in their city, and they can estimate like what is the average lifespan of a building. They know what materials will be available in which year, and so they can also accordingly plan new parts of the city with the materials which will get available and so on. So there are opportunities coming up. But right now, there is too little data to do that.
I would say we have a new profession in the next 2 to 3 years. As soon as data is available, this needs to be done, and it will help so much in both resources and waste management in cities that it will be just great. So we have another question, which is very interesting, from Hello W. Could you please give some other examples or industries that can apply circular supply chain? As we know, not all industries can apply circular supply chain. An interesting question. I would let you two answer. If you have any answer, I might have an answer already. So let's see what we have between the three of us.
I'm thinking within manufacturing. So like nuts, bolts, screws, they can easily be repurposed or, reused, nails, those kinds of things. Actually, isn't the food industry doing some stuff on the circular supply chain at the moment as well? Is it Danone, I think? Been doing some stuff?
All of them actually should, and many of them started doing. I don't think they are there yet. Some of them are getting there, but in my point of view, all of the industries can go circular. Really, I would not agree with the statement that there are some industries that cannot go circular. I'm 100% convinced that it is possible. Of course, getting there and finding the solutions are not easy, right? We will have some industries where we will struggle, simple as that. But I would say, and this is my personal experience, I hope you can also confirm, that we have so many young people who have an amazing amount and diversity of ideas that myself, as an aging population, and I'm sorry to put it that way, but myself, I consider myself an aging population already. And honestly, I don't see myself coming up with many of those ideas. So they are absolutely trailblazing in some of the stuff that they come up with, either in the product segment or the service segment, or even from an industry perspective, or solutions that you are using, Dominik. I mean, if I take a look at, these platforms that you have right now, and then I think you are part of that younger generation as well still. I mean, I didn't even expect a platform like this, 2 to 3 years ago. So for me, the pure existence of a platform like this and the transparency that comes with it is one of the proofs that we have enough brain capacity in the younger generations to make these steps. What do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, I would also agree that there is no industry where circular supply chain cannot be applied, but it also depends on the definition of what a circular supply chain is. So I'm always thinking about the waste hierarchy, like avoid, reduce, then reuse, and then recycle, and then of course, I think waste to energy and so on. But exactly. you can. I mean, the higher the better, right? But you can put every industry on one of these stages or on several stages. Yeah,
exactly.
And that is the first part. The second part, I think there's a lot of ideas coming up because circular economy is a hot topic, or I would say it's more trying that we not screw the world up.
True, very true.
Because it's us, and even the younger generation who will feel that. And it's also like we don't want that. We want to have a world where we can, which is livable. And I think there's a pressure, which also we young people feel. And that's why there are so many ideas coming up. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think there's a lot every day. There's something popping up, and I'm also amazed to see like what's coming like in this area.
I can only agree. Sometimes I cannot even follow, but I'm trying. I'm trying my best. So another one from Gordon: could we create a negative VAT? The value is being recovered from previous value creation, perhaps another type of subsidy. And I could not agree more. What do you think? This would be one of those solutions, right, from a governance and a taxation perspective.
Yeah, so it's like a typical economically tool which you can use, which is a subsidy, right? And so, as I said, 40% of the CO2, like of the CO2 is coming from the construction sector. Half of it is related, is created before the building is even finished. So that is all production of materials, and the other half is like energy and so on. And so we have subsidies for energy efficiency in buildings, so to insulation and so on. At least in Germany, you get money to do the insulation, and now with the recovery wave from the European Union, there's another money. But there's no money for resource efficiency, which is like this half, this 50% I talked about. So so it would be why, if we are taking care about energy efficiency, why we're not taking care about resource efficiency, and then the subsidies, like you as a building owner, get money for building resource efficient. That is definitely a part of the solution. Yeah, and I would totally agree. I would be happy if it already is zero VAT, but like a negative is even better.
Yeah, can only agree. And then with that said, I think we had a question at the end of the thread here from Julia. How do you capture data in existing buildings? I think it really ties nicely with what you were just saying, Dominik, and goes back also to Susan. So from a technology perspective, could you just give an answer to Julia, and then we can take it from there?
Yeah, so like we have to go into manually into buildings, and we have to digitalize them. So we developed a so-called reuse assessment, which is a methodology and a kind of framework where we go into this building and taking photos and put all information of these materials in a software. As said, how easily it is deconstructible, what could be the probability of selling it, and so on, and a lot of factors. And with that, we calculate then a financial value. And every material which is then put in gets a material passport, and this material passport is based on a blockchain. And so it's then traceable, meaning that you can really when this material is then sold to another building, the material passport is still attached to the material and is transferred, and there's this traceability element in it. So this is basically how we're doing that.
I think.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. So moving forward, I think maybe within, say, from a construction perspective, there needs to be a data owner, or whatever, however you want to call it, that manages the data for all the buildings, or the information owner, manager, and that's updated annually or every 5 years or whenever it's needed. But because I think probably what happens is someone is responsible for it, and then they leave that job, and then someone else comes in and nobody knows what to do, or that is a responsibility. And so 20 years down the line, you've got a gap in the information. So by having those kind of roles, whether it's construction or even fashion, someone having responsibility for all that and accountability might help with those things.
I also agree that that is definitely a challenge which has to be solved, to give someone the responsibility.
Yeah.
And probably there is an educational element as well, right? As you mentioned, Susan, quite rightly, when people are leaving those jobs and someone else new comes in, right? And then to make sure that they really understand what they need to do to ensure integrity of data, right, on the long term. And we have another really great question from Udit. What are your views and experience about the challenges related to quality certification of reused materials and corresponding legalities? How to ensure or build the credibility regarding the performance? That's a really good question.
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and one which we get asked also quite often, because of course it's very important to build in good quality materials. So first of all materials which will be on our platform are there will be like a toxic assessment first of all, because unfortunately toxic materials is something which is very common in the building construction sector. So they're all toxic free. And then there are depending on the material, there must be recertification done by official institutions or experts. So to assure then the quality. And I mean, that's also quite often legally required. And then also another concern is like the warranty part. And we can back that with insurance, which is covering the insurance, the warranty. So and like in the reuse assessment that is done by experts, so which they one factor when we put in the materials is that we assess also the quality of the materials, what is the condition of the material. This is then also something which is then shown to the potential buyer. So but that's challenging, and we have to build a reputation in the market, because normally you think secondhand, that is lower quality, but materials from the past are very often a better quality.
Yeah.
I mean, look outside. There might be buildings standing there for 200 years, and they are looking much better than other buildings which were built 20 years ago. So, yeah.
There's probably a piece around maintaining the information on that as well. So making sure that not, it's restricted access, that it can't be editable or changed, or you can't assign that information to suddenly another piece of material, which is probably something that the construction industry has never had to think about before.
Yeah, I guess that's where you apply blockchain, right, Dominik, and then the document, the digital document verification and proof, right? So those data cannot just easily be transferred from one material or a passport to another where it's not applicable. But it's amazing. So I honestly have to say that this is such a big area where we could dig so long, and I believe, if you just take a look at the fact that how much you could do in Germany alone, right? And if the whole process is being globalized as such, not in the negative globalization way, but in a really good way of sharing information and educating people on the good practices that can be put in place, then I think this really has an opportunity that will grow way beyond Germany, and should actually grow way beyond Germany, because it fosters all of the the elements that we have discussed so far, right? Transparency, accountability, where the money is going from an innovational perspective, right? So I think, Susan, you also mentioned that it's so important to have the right resources and the right money put in the right place. And I think, Dominik, you can also confirm that is not that easy to get, the right funding in certain cases. What do you think? Because I think this is an important element of, the circular economy, where we see a lot of funding and innovation money still going into certain areas, whereas some of the circular companies are still looking for investors, right? Susan?
Well, I was just thinking, because not everybody is for the circular supply chain. So, could we have situations where companies who are against it because they don't benefit from it will buy up companies like Dominik's to take them out of the market?
I believe I count on your accountability there, Dominik.
Are we already in negotiation? No, but that's a true point, Susan. And Yeah, so there are definitely companies also like who already approach interest, but like we have, I mean, where we know like we don't want to have them as an investor, and certainly don't want to sell our company. But yeah, so so I think the transition to circular economy, it's not just like a normal transition. It will change the whole economic world, and so there will be winners and losers. So I think it's a kind of like the industrial revolution, where like there will be unfortunately losers, or also the globalization. There were losers, and so we have to take care about them. And so the European Union is taking care about them, or tries to take care about them with the Just Fund. But let's see. I think there will be a lot of challenges ahead, and we have to really consider these people who maybe now, for example, producing the materials or extracting the raw materials, which we will not need it, hopefully, in the future anymore. They have to be integrated in the new supply chain. And in terms of funding, so I think, I mean, like we are like a for-profit company. So but for-profit company with two aims. Like we have an impact objective, and of course like a profit objective, and we try to have both like interrelated, and that's also what we have one investor, which is a Norwegian impact investor in our company, and we also are backed by the German government and the Ministry of Economics and so on. So we are quite happy to have the financial, that we are financially backed. And we see also interest in investors in investing in our company. So I think, at least for us, I can say, when you look at the VC development in like a circular economy, it's also going up. So I think you're right in saying that was not the case in the past, but I think it's changing right now. And also, maybe to add that, green finance initiative by the European Union is very important. So there's this green finance taxonomy, or sustainable finance, not green finance, sustainable finance taxonomy, who's like creating a taxonomy. So that would be also your topic, Susan.
Yeah, definitely. You just said taxonomy.
Yeah, it's like they really want to define like which projects are sustainable to invest in, and of course, like investing in our startup is hopefully some things considered as sustainable, so the investors have better terms, and with that are also more eager to invest in companies such as and other circular economy companies. So I think that will be positive in the future.
Can only agree. And as we are approaching very fast, our last 2 minutes of this 1 hour with everybody, just one question to both of you, and really shortly to answer. We are just before Christmas. What if you could have one single wish from Senna for Christmas on circular economy or circular supply chains pertaining your job or your area of industry? And then we close it here after. Susan?
Oh no, I think more people need to know about it. I think spreading awareness, getting more people engaged and involved, and that would be a good wish.
Dominik?
And for me, it's that like the political decision makers, so our politicians, are taking the time on Christmas to not only talk about circular economy, but also put in the right legislation for that. That would be my wish.